Alright, so this is Diesel We the People News. Alright, back at it one more time. Holy mackerel, I'm making videos. Alright, so this video is without prejudice and or without recourse. Alright, I'm reserving all my rights. Okay, dokie. UCC 1-308. Alright, UCC 1-207. Alright, I'm not an attorney, so I am not going to give legal advice. Why? Because I'm not an attorney. It's just my opinion only. Okay? So listen up. Alright, never look just straight forward. Always look around you so that way you can protect yourself and your family by any means necessary. Alright, that is liberty, people. Liberty. Protect yourself by any means necessary. Life, property, pursuit of happiness, all that kind of good stuff. Okay? Inalienable rights. Alright. So, hot off the press. Something astounding happened. And I can't contain myself. Number one, I'm going to have to remind everybody, I'm not one of them ones that's against government. I am for government within the box of the Constitution, not to trespass upon our inalienable rights unless there's a victim. Okay, so let's get this straight. I'm not against government. I'm against out of control government. Okay, and this particular story is just that. Alright, and something that's very rarely ever used, which is 18 USC 242. Alright, should they add a 241 in there? In this case, no, because there was no conspiracy. Okay, but it was good enough for 242, and most people don't use this, and I don't know why. Qualified immunity affects a lot of things. But let's go. Oh, by the way, subscribe to the Civil Rights Lawyer. Alright, and this is not quite the news I wanted, because I was going for the judge involved into a search of a family court judge, in fact, searching individual's house, and she was there on the property along with officers, and they were following her demand. Gee, officers, when you see something illegal, arrest them. That includes the judges. Idiots. Alright.
Happy Tuesday. About 7 months ago, I posted a video about a West Virginia police officer, Everett Maynard, formerly of the Logan, West Virginia Police Department, who was found guilty by a federal jury of violating the civil rights of an arrestee by using excessive force. This was caught on video, and the video footage was shown to the jury. This is the one where the officer was caught by a surveillance camera flipping the bird to the camera. Well, today I talked to one of the investigators involved in the prosecution of that case, and I thought I'd give you an update video about what ended up happening to former officer Maynard. Well, the US DOJ recently issued another press release in the case announcing that former officer Maynard has been sentenced to 9 years in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release after that, due to his conviction for violating an arrestee's civil rights by using excessive force. So in the video that I posted late last year, I showed you the actual photos that I had obtained that were presented to the jurors during the trial. And I went over with you the actual jury instructions that were used in that case, because that is always the most important thing. What jury instructions were used? What did the judge instruct the jury that the law was? So I'll post a link to my first video on this case in the description below. So this is a rare case of a...
I hate to interrupt. Okay, and it's still my opinion. I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. That's the difference between jury trial and trial by jury. The judges are not allowed to instruct them. They go by the Constitution more or less. Okay? And they hear the whole case. The judge cannot ask the jury to leave. Judges have gotten way out of control on this jury control. Out of control, jury control. Alright.
Police officer being held accountable in the most important way. He received almost a decade in prison for his actions. The U.S. Department of Justice had this to say about the sentencing of former Officer Maynard. This defendant's abuse of law enforcement authority inside a police station was egregious and caused serious injuries, said Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark for the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Police misconduct undermines community trust in law enforcement and impedes effective policing. This sentence confirms that law enforcement officers who use excessive force against arrestees will be held accountable.
Yeah.
And this is just the most important issue in policing in America. It is a lack of accountability. And believe me when I say that there is nothing that police officers or any government officials fear more than federal prosecution.
It's just
Most
rare.
of what I can do, it all comes down to money. Public exposure, but also money. There's something different about ending up in federal prison for 10 years. Now, Title 18 United States Code, Section 242, makes it a crime
Woohoo!
to deprive a person of his civil rights under color of law. So for a jury to find the defendant guilty of this, federal prosecutors have to prove these following elements beyond a reasonable doubt at a trial. One, that a defendant acted under color of law, generally not an issue with police officers.
Right.
Two, the defendant deprived the victim of a right secured or protected by the Constitution or the laws of the United States. Here, the right of an arrestee to be free from unreasonable seizures.
They do that all the time.
Which includes the right to be free from the use of unreasonable force by a law enforcement officer. And the final two elements, three and four, are that the defendant acted willfully, pretty easy, but more importantly, number four, that the defendant's acts resulted in bodily injury to the arrestee, and that was the case here. And note, elements 1 and 2, under color of law and violated a federally protected right, are by themselves a misdemeanor. Okay, so when elements 3 and 4 are added to that, which includes bodily injury to the arrestee, now we're talking about a felony, and that's the conviction that we had here. And this happened on November 17th of last year, back when I posted the first video. This federal jury looked at the evidence. They convicted former Officer Maynard of using excessive force against an arrestee while he was a police officer with the Logan Police Department. This is in West Virginia. At trial, the jury heard evidence that Maynard had assaulted the victim in the bathroom of the Logan Police Department before dragging him into an adjoining room, hauling him across the room, and ramming his head against the door frame. The assault initially rendered the victim unconscious and left him with a broken shoulder, a broken nose, and a cut to his head that required staples to close. While the defendant officer assaulted the victim, the defendant berated the victim for, quote, making demands of him by, among other things, asking to go to the bathroom. After the assault, he left the victim unconscious in a pool of his own blood. Thereafter, he bragged about the force that he used. It's important to note that in this actual case, the jury was instructed that a police officer, and I quote, may not use force merely because an arrestee questions an officer's authority, insults the officer, uses profanity, or otherwise engages in verbal provocation, unless the force was otherwise objectively reasonable at the time it was used. Additionally, the jurors were instructed that an officer may not use force solely to punish, retaliate against, or seek retribution against another person. Please.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there. Which they do that all the time, y'all. The difference is, unlike this judge, most judges actually don't direct the jury that information, and that does make a wee bit of difference. Okay? So the attorneys out there, or if you represent yourself, wink, 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 needs to kind of study the wording of this and add it into their case, to have the judge pronounce that to the jury specifically.
Officers generally will be given by the courts a lot of leeway. You know, all of the case law says we're not going to judge police officers with 20/20 hindsight. That's the language that's always been used. So if a police officer does actually use excessive force, looking at it in hindsight, they're going to be given a lot of leeway, and that's where the courts use qualified immunity, which, by the way, doesn't apply as a defense in a criminal prosecution, only a civil lawsuit.
In fact, that's in 98% of the cases.
But they're going to get a lot of leeway because, in the end, the jury is determining what is reasonable. An arrestee could say anything, could insult the mother or sister or daughter of the police officer, almost say anything. If violent force is used in response to that, that is almost never going to be reasonable under federal law, under federal constitutional law. And especially if it's really just used as a retaliation or a punishment or retribution for something the individual did, not response to an imminent existing threat, that is going to be highly illegal and wrong. So how did the jurors know that it happened this way in this case? Well, because it was captured on video, which is by far the most important tool available to us for constitutional accountability. The police certainly like to use video evidence in court when they prosecute members of the public, but they don't like it when it happens to them. In this case, however, I'm told that it actually was a law enforcement officer who originally blew the whistle on this guy to federal investigators, and good for that individual. There needs to be more of this, and I have reason to believe that there is going to be more of this in West Virginia. And please feel free to send me links. I really love that. Or send me your footage if something happened to you. And I will see you next time.
All right. Now, like I said once before, all right, the Title 18 USC 242 is very rarely used because it actually does hold them accountable. Instead, they bypass the 18 and go directly into qualified immunity, right? And I don't know, y'all. I just don't understand. Well, I do understand why these prosecutors don't use Title 18, 241s, and 242s because, well, it holds them accountable. All right. Anyway, this is the civil rights lawyer. Gave us another update about a video a year ago. I don't remember exact details of that video. It's been so long for me. Alright. But I vaguely have a slight memory of it since I've seen the pictures of this. But the most important thing is there was justice served on an officer. Because we've been violated way too much and way too long, y'all, and I'm just glad to see the ball is actually maybe shifting a little bit. There has been a Supreme Court ruling, I guess sometime last year, that a prisoner in Texas got beat up, and it went all the way to Supreme Courts, and the prison was, or jail, alright, was just complete disgusting. And it was beyond reasonable doubt, and the qualified immunity went out the window on that. So I think in a lot of ways that one particular you guys call it ruling but opinion opened the door for this. I don't know for a fact, you know, I'm just going by my opinion because I have not read the case, but I can't help wonder if they actually put this Texas case into their document to go ahead and follow through with the Title 18 USC 241, not 241, 242. Alright, because basically it was just, both of them was horrendous, and then both of them was in the jails. Alright, so I'm willing to bet they brought up the Texas case on that, and I cannot remember for the life of me what opinion or ruling that you guys call was that, but I do have a video on that sometime back. Okay? However, there we go. There's your news update, y'all. Wish it was the judge, but this was just as great as if it was the judge. Alright. Bye, y'all.